Thank you for joining us here tonight for Richard Gaw's Two Chairs. I'm Jim Burns. I'm here helping produce this wonderful play on the YouTube. And let me introduce to you now Carrie Christine McElroy.
Welcome, everyone, to City Theater Company and to our virtual play reading series. I am, as Jim said, Carrie Christine McElroy. I am CTC's artistic director, and I'm really excited to share this table read of Richard L. Gaw's play, Two Chairs, with all of you. CTC is committed to working with local playwrights to develop and showcase their work, and we are thrilled to partner with Richard on this piece. CTC is known for an exciting exchange of energy between our performers and our patrons. We will not be able to hear your reactions tonight the way we would in a room together, but we welcome your feedback and your questions in the chat. And we hope you will stick around after the reading to join our actors and our playwright in a virtual Q&A where we can discuss the play and the process, and we can be together there virtually, even as we are apart physically. For tonight's performance, I will be reading the stage directions to help you imagine the action. Our performers tonight include Aidan Briggs as Cheyenne, Michael Gray as Nathan, and Margaret Coons as Margaret Bloom. Thank you to these actors, to Richard for offering this play to our virtual series, and to Jim Burns for producing this event for City Theater Company. And thank you, viewers, for being present and engaged at a time when our stages remain shuttered. We look forward to someday presenting this piece to you live and in person, and appreciate any donation you can make to help pay this and our other work forward. You can make a donation at city-theater.org. Until we can be together again in the room where it happens, please enjoy Two Chairs, and we look forward to connecting with you after. Thank you all very much for being here. Two Chairs by Richard L. Gaw. The time is 6 p.m. on a winter day. The place is a suite in a luxury hotel high atop New York City. A solitary light falls on Cheyenne Ford, an actor in his late 20s. He is seated in a chair facing the audience, and he seems to attract more attention than he wishes to give off. Completely hidden behind black wraparound sunglasses, he is slovenly dressed and unshaven, but still very handsome, accidentally. He speaks to a person in front of him. Flashbulbs pop in a staccato light around him. A voice is heard off stage as if from a sound booth, and soon after, another. The interviewer.
Okay, we have camera. Sound? Do we have sound? Can you hear me? All right, we've got sound. We're rolling. Cheyenne Ford, Ambitron, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Cheyenne Ford, it's so good to see you again.
Thank you. Really, it's...
A year ago, we sat down right after the Lasker prerogative set all kinds of box office records, and the conjecture was that there would never be another vehicle that would ever come close in box office success. And then in its first weekend, Ambitron. Wow.
I don't approach films in terms of monetary...
So, what's it like to wake up knowing that you have the #1 movie in America?
I'm just proud to be associated with such a good company of storytellers. They matter. I'm only a conduit.
What drew you to this movie?
For reasons that have to do with the story. I've always been attracted to the juxtaposition of good versus evil, the fine line between yes and no, righteous versus criminal, of compliance versus rebellion. And what this film undergoes is a kind of all-knowing sense of truth and ultimately forgiveness.
Do you see yourself in the main character?
Do I? What? In what sense? I see myself in every character I play. It's an adaptation to the surroundings of a stranger, and eventually, if we're lucky, we morph into the comfort of the familiar.
I mean the fact that he served as the mirror image of your life to your own events.
Turn it off.
Coincidence. The film is adapted from a fictional novel, and the premise of fiction is that reality is suspended for the moment.
Yes, but we live in the real world, Cheyenne, which brings me to question coincidence.
Why do you feel the need to ask the question?
The character you play witnesses a murder taking place.
Yes, he does. And from that, you're trying to establish a correlation between...
Logically, the connection must be made between the film and the death of your father.
Turn it off, please.
No, let me answer this.
Do you need a minute?
Okay, let's try this again. From where we left off. And 5, 4, 3, 2, and...
When you were 13 years old, you witnessed a murder.
I witnessed nothing but the slow disintegration of a human being, and that you're here asking about it is, I find absolutely grotesque.
But it is my duty as a journalist to...
Really? You call yourself a journalist? The role of a journalist is to seek facts. In your world, what do? Your hair is more important than the facts. What you're doing is sensationalism. And the brilliant thing is that you have dumbed yourself down to the point that it's all just irrelative. No, your duty is to look good, and yet maybe by virtue of someone in your earplug, you have been programmed to torture another individual for the purpose of having more stupid people watch your show. And why? It is for the procurement of bliss.
I'll repeat the question. On the night of October 10th, 1993, you, Cheyenne Ford, witnessed a murder taking place.
Turn it off, please.
Okay, let's take it from the top. And 5, 4.
Keep it rolling.
Cheyenne.
I've got this. Look, I'm going to tell you something that I don't even believe with your tiny, minuscule, unchallenged mind that you are capable of comprehending. But I'm going to tell it to you anyway. Are you listening? There is no larger, more impermeable truth than the eyes of God. That in the eyes of God, everyone is forgiven.
Turn it off.
In the eyes of God,
You were 13 years old.
Turn it off, please.
everyone is forgiven. Do you hear me?
Your father was murdered.
I said, do you hear me?
I said, turn it off. I am only going to say this once. Rule 1, don't talk. Just listen. Rule 2, he is accountable for no one. Not himself, not for his past. Rule 3, do not question why. It just is. But if you must know, Rule 4, celebrity is a confession to a billion faces, and you are only one of them. Those are the rules, and you disobeyed them. Now get your camera and get out of this room.
Lights.
Chicago Sun-Times. Amatron is a visually dazzling cyber adventure full of kinetic excitement. New York Daily News. Amatron is a superhero come to life in which the fate of the world comes down to a titanic fistfight between the forces of good and evil. It goes on and on. 85 million in its first weekend. Can I get you something? A masseuse, Cristal. They have caviar downstairs.
They're going to know soon, Nathan. And you continually act as if
No, they won't. We've been over this.
you were right there. I have sat in this chair for 2 days, and how many confrontations?
You need to stick to the script. You're not sticking to the script.
You heard them, didn't you?
This is all fiction.
They said that her hand went over his mouth and she kept it there
The truest definition of fiction.
until he stopped breathing.
And when your life becomes fiction, you deflect, deny, and dismiss. When they ask about your father, when they ask about your mother, when they ask about you, what have I taught you all these years? These are the life lessons you have learned. To implement them.
How did they write that piece?
Deflect, Cheyenne. It was a death in the family.
How did they know what happened?
They don't know what happened. Pure speculation, fantasy.
Then how did they know the coroner's report was inaccurate?
The coroner's report was conclusive. Coronary disruption accelerated through an overdose of barbiturates.
Then why are they still asking questions?
Because you let the esquires of the world run all over you.
I have cooperated. I have done everything you've asked of me.
No. You know what you did, Cheyenne? You blinked. And when you blink, when you let the wall down, when you say things like, everyone's been forgiven in the eyes of God, you keep the door open. No one's been forgiven because nothing's happened. Your father died of a heart attack on October 10th, 1993. A death in the family.
She held her hand on his mouth until he couldn't breathe. I want to know who told them, Nathan. Please tell me what happened. You were there.
It was a death in the family.
She held it there.
An accident.
She choked him when he was sleeping.
I'm sorry, I didn't get to see my father's best work ahead of him.
That's why she couldn't face me.
I'm really here to talk about the movie, thank you.
Because she killed him 10 years ago. Didn't she, Nathan? Why won't you tell me? I am her son and he was my father. I live in the dark and I'm not allowed to know because it will wreck everything. Tell me that, Nathan. Admit to me.
Stop! I have single-handedly made you famous in less than half your life. Everything has fallen at your feet. And now when the film is at when you have the highest grossing film of the year and you're on the cover of every magazine, now is the time you feel the need to exhume the buried remnants of ghosts. When will you realize that there is nothing more intrinsically satisfying than to take somebody down? They're testing us, Cheyenne. They are looking to see how much punishment we can take and whether we endure. Whether or not we last depends on the degree to which we can take a punch. I have every bit of faith that this will go away. But until then, you say it was a death in the family. I regret that I did not have a chance to see my father's best work ahead of him.
She confided in you. She told you everything.
Deflect, deny, and dismiss.
You kept me away from it. You pulled me out of the house the night my father was killed.
Because she wanted me to. You were 13 years old, and your father was throwing away his entire life. And your mother told me to take you away from this, and that's what I did. And in the process, I made you a star. End of story. Look, I've read the treatment on the Jesus picture, so when we get in LA tonight, we're meeting with Shave and Lynn from New Line. We say we got a major studio considering the rights, even though there is no studio, but when they see that Cheyenne Ford has already signed on, they will play our hand and you're over in Morocco next spring hanging on a cross. And why? Because we have cornered New Line into an $80 million green light from a 2-page treatment in a studio that doesn't exist.
Nathan prepares to leave.
I'll be in the lobby for the next hour. Do not open this door. If anyone knocks, do not let them in. The limo will be here at 8. Our flight is at 9. And one more thing, I don't want you mentioning that God again. It makes you sound weak, and nobody goes to the movies to see the weak. Get rid of him. God is a barker on a flatbed selling potions. He's the God of the indigent, the vagrants, the beggars, the thieves, the liars. Do not open this door.
Nathan exits. Cheyenne looks at himself in a mirror, the audience. There is a knock at the door. Cheyenne ignores it. There is another knock, then another. On the 4th knock, Cheyenne opens the door. We hear a female voice, but do not see her.
Hello.
Cheyenne slams the door. The visitor soon knocks again. Cheyenne opens the door.
You want an autograph?
No.
You have a resume?
No.
A headshot?
No.
Screenplay?
No.
Then what are you doing here?
I have an interview with you at 6:30.
So?
It's 6:30.
How did you get in here?
I walked in,
I'm not in the mood.
but I came all the way from Massachusetts.
I told you I'm not in the mood.
Cheyenne slams the door again. There is another knock on the door. He opens it.
Look, what the hell do you want from me?
This is the last time, I promise. But this time, I want you to listen to me. Got it? I have driven 5 hours from Massachusetts in my Honda Civic, which caught on fire on the Taconic Parkway and cost me $100 to fix. So I don't appreciate having a door slammed in my face 3 consecutive times, no matter who the slammer is. So don't tell me you're not in the mood to do this interview. Because, buddy, let me tell you, you will get in the mood to do this interview, because if you really want to know the truth, I'm not in the mood to hear you're not in the mood right now. Because I'm so pissed off about the car that I don't really care who the hell you are. Open this goddamn door and keep it open before I bust this mother down!
Cheyenne slowly retreats.
Thank you.
Margaret Bloom is in the room. She carries an oversized bag wrapped around her shoulder and lets it fall to the ground. Speaking, she walks around the room, looking at things.
God, I'm practically postal. Can I tell you that I've had the day from hell? Like, can we just establish that up front here? Because, okay, so Courtney, my editor, right, she wakes me up at 7:18 this morning, and she's like, get your ass out of bed, young lady. You're going to New York City. To which I responded, Courtney, that's 5 hours from here. And then my Honda practically burst into flames on the way down here. I mean, of all things, flames were shooting out the front. Flames.
Who are you?
Margaret.
Margaret who?
Margaret Bloom, as in flowers.
Where are you from?
The Sophian, Smith College, Northampton, Massachusetts.
I don't talk to colleges.
Oh, you'll talk to me. I'm the #1 reporter in the paper.
How did you get in here?
Well, let me see if I have this. Okay. It seems your assistant publicist was a childhood friend of Courtney's mother until he moved away when he was in the 3rd grade. Connections were made. And Courtney begged, and to see Courtney beg is kind of a perverse thrill.
How did you get in here?
You really want to hear it?
Look, would you just explain how you got...
I got to my 8:30 Econ 202 class. Have you ever taken an 8:30 Econ class? God, it's a form of quiet torture, if you ask me. Then I pick up the press packet at the office at 10, pull onto the highway, and write really bad questions while I drive. Mass pike to the Taconic, my car catches on fire at 2. I get it fixed. 200 big ones, thank you very much. And back on the road by 3, Henry Hudson, West Side Highway, get to the hotel, take the elevator to the 39th floor, follow the signs, and here I am. Oh, do you have any food? I'm allergic to wheat.
What do you want from me?
Protein, meat. See, I'm hypoglycemic. I was diagnosed when I was 15 years old, and
Who are you?
I told you before.
Where is your notebook?
I have a hypersensitive memory gland. I'll remember everything.
Where's your camera?
Oh, broken. The light meter thingy is all.
Where is your tape recorder?
What?
Your tape recorder.
Why do I need a tape recorder?
For accuracy?
I work for college paper. We don't care about accuracy.
But you've got one.
Got what?
A tape recorder. It's strapped to your chest. Take off your sweater.
I'm not going to take off my sweater. Why do you want me to?
Because it's there. Wait, you probably don't even work for a newspaper. You made it all up, and either you're a sick, obsessed fan or a low-life intern with a seedy media chain, and you're here to feed off the Esquire story. I see it all the time. Lift your sweater.
I don't work for a seedy media chain, and I'm not going to lift my sweater. How ridiculous.
Then show me your bag.
Why do you want to know what's in my bag?
Open it.
There's nothing in my bag. You think I'm a psycho, don't you?
Yes, dump it.
I may be a little edgy right now, but I can assure you
Dump it
I'm not.
or I'm calling security.
Margaret dumps the contents of her bag on the floor.
I thought there was nothing in your bag.
Well, there's nothing here to kill you with, if that's what you're implying. Hat, gloves, the fountainhead. God, that author's a capitalist whore.
What's that?
This? It's a pen.
Give it.
What, like I'm gonna kill you with a ballpoint?
What's that? It's masking tape. Oh, are you here to kidnap me? Wait, am I being punked? Is Ashton downstairs? Who are you?
I keep telling you. I am Margaret Bloom. I am a sophomore at Smith College and I live in Narberth, Pennsylvania. It's all official. Dude, I have a press pass. And if you don't believe me, call my mother. Go ahead. Dr. Emily Blanchard. She's a proctologist in Philadelphia. 1-800-BUTTDOC. Tell her it's in reference to her daughter, Margaret. Look, if you think I'm some chick out for a joyride, let me tell you something. I've done this before, okay? I do it all the time. And I'm not going to hurt you. I just need a few minutes. Then I'll be out the door and out of your life for good. You know, I have a theory that those who are paranoid are doing it to fill something that's missing in their lives. Something's missing, Cheyenne Ford.
Margaret examines the suite.
So this is it, huh? This is how you live. When I was a kid, my father would take me around Rittenhouse Square and I'd look up at all the big hotels and imagine that kings and queens lived at the top of it. Oh, little hot dogs. Oh, do you mind? Oh my God, I've had exactly 7 raisins in 5 hours. Does this roll have wheat products in it? Because I'm allergic to wheat, you know. So if I pass out, I'll just need you to call downstairs and have them send up an EpiPen. You can just jam me anywhere. It's really okay. Hey, have you ever tasted your childhood? Once, when I was 7, my parents had this party, and all the kids got to eat these like cocktail wieners. Only we called them little hot dogs. And now, whenever I eat a hot dog today, I think of that party. So here's my theory. If you keep eating Captain Crunch and putting potato chips on bologna sandwiches, you'll still get old, but you'll always have the memory of your childhood within you.
You must have lots of theories.
I do, as a matter of fact. How did you know that?
Oh, I presume you have a million of them, just roaming around in a free-floating...
Really? And why do you presume that?
Well, you barge in here like you're my best friend, and you talk about Captain Crunch when all you have is 5 minutes and you're back out the door. And you have a huge bag, so one would surmise.
Wow. Would surmise what?
That you're a bit of a wacko.
Really? So I guess I could surmise from yours slamming the door in my face 3 consecutive times that you're a bit of an asshole.
I am not an asshole.
And I'm not a wacko.
When does the interview begin?
It has.
So where are your questions?
I don't have them anymore.
You just said you wrote questions.
I said I wrote bad ones.
But you had questions.
Yes.
Where are they now?
They're on the Taconic Parkway.
What are they doing there?
I threw them out the window.
You threw your questions out of your car?
I did.
Why?
Because they were bad. And bad questions make a bad interview. You need to let them speak and you'll find the truth of who they really are.
And you know this.
The best interviews don't begin with a question.
And how are you going to get that from me?
I haven't figured out yet.
By all means, take your time.
The truth is, I wrote questions that don't pertain to you. Actually, only one question.
Ask it. Get this over with. What was the question?
What was your deepest grieving? Listen. I could ask you that and you could answer it if you like, but these questions really have nothing to do with you. In fact, they're floating off a highway somewhere, so between you and me, I'd rather stumble onto something.
Stumble? Wait a minute. You drive 4 hours.
5.
5. You're not supposed to be here. You have no credentials, no questions, no notes, no tape recorder, and you want to stumble? What's your name again?
Yes?
And you're not the least bit intimidated.
Why? Should I be? I mean, I can fake it if you want.
What is your name?
I told you before. Margaret. How many times do I have to tell
Look
you?
around, Margaret. You're in a $3,000 a day hotel suite with someone who made a film that was seen by more people than the entire population of Sudan, for which I was paid $18 million. Let me explain to you how a press junket works. You come through that door and ask 3 questions. I have spoken to all the major networks and given 47 5-minute interviews in the last 2 days. They don't stumble. You want to know the real me? You want to get the real story so that you can go back to your college and be a real star? Let's begin with tomorrow morning. Walk the beach near Marina del Rey at dawn. Yoga, rock and roll, and phone calls. White egg omelets at Hugo's. Massage at Burke Williams. Lunch at Rain. Dinner at Flint's with this actor, that actor. Then on to the Buffalo Club on Olympic Boulevard. Or to Sugar or the Circle or Dominic's. Return home to the beach house at 2, wake up 6 hours later, and repeat the process. So there it is, Margaret. Go ahead. Stumble.
What are the flowers for, and why am I not allowed to see your eyes?
Cheyenne reaches for a piece of paper on the table between the 2 chairs and hands it to Margaret.
Read it.
CNN, PM Hollywood, Access Hollywood,
Keep going.
Entertainment Tonight, the New York Times, Reuters, the Detroit Free Press, the Associated Press.
Did you even see Ambotron?
No.
Then how do you even approach the idea of interviewing me if you haven't seen the movie?
Hey, I didn't even know I was going to be here until 7:18 this morning, so cut me a little slack.
I don't have time to speak to somebody who doesn't even know what the movie's about.
You're Devin Steele. You play an FBI agent and your arm gets blown off in Guatemala. So a team of nuclear scientists equip you with a new arm, only this one's filled with superhuman powers. And you end up beating up the bad guys and saving the world. Half man, half machine, full body contact.
So you did see it. You're lying.
I read the press packet while the man fixed my car. I couldn't stop laughing. I mean, really, I'm sorry, but
What?
Who writes this shit? Listen to me. I have a theory, and that is that you dumb down and the dumb go down with you. And you're an accomplice.
Have you seen any of my movies? The China Factor?
Are there guns in it?
The Lasker Prerogative.
More guns?
I don't believe this. Everyone saw The Lasker Prerogative.
You seem to be taking this as a personal affront. I can't help it if
I'm just curious why you haven't seen any of my movies.
Look at me. Do I look like the kind of person who'd see your movies?
Everyone likes my movies. Millions of people like my... Ambotron earned $85 million in its first weekend. This is America, and we like movies.
Really? I live in America and I prefer books.
Books?
Yeah. Remember them? It's people like you who are the death of reading.
I know your type. You're one of those people who sits in a coffee shop with all your other intellectual friends and laughs in the face of anything that's considered mainstream. You have no idea what you're saying, but you sound so smart when you say it.
Wrong. I don't like coffee. And I usually do all the laughing in my dorm room with no one around, but thanks for the label. I could really use the company.
What was the last movie you saw? In a theater. Have you ever even seen a movie?
The Diving Bell and the Butterfly.
Schnabel's movie.
Yes.
That was 20 years ago.
I told you, I prefer books.
But what about the movie?
I loved the book.
I'm not talking about the book. I'm talking about the movie. What did you think about the movie?
I found it self-indulgent.
Are you kidding me? Julian's a friend of mine.
It was obvious that Schnabel didn't do what the book did. And that was allowed the story to tell itself. You forgot that the only thing you really need to do as a filmmaker is point it at the story and get the hell out of the way. But that's what happens when you give egomaniacs a camera. They turn the best stories into cinematic masturbation. But the book, on the other hand, that's a page turner.
Your time is up, Margaret.
You're kicking me out because I don't like Schnabel?
I'm kicking you out because you don't belong here. You could have had a nice little interview.
I didn't come here for a nice little interview.
It was a pleasure meeting you, Margaret. Enjoy your trip back to college.
Cheyenne exits and returns with an iPod. Margaret remains.
I thought I told you this interview was over. Seriously, it's time for you to go.
Do you always wear your sunglasses inside on a day when it's supposed to snow?
Now.
Roses, daffodils, wildflowers.
Margaret exits. Cheyenne listens to music on his iPod. The doorbell rings. Cheyenne answers it.
I thought I told you this interview was over.
What did I do wrong?
I don't trust you, for one.
I sense this. What you don't know is that I've done this 100 times.
When?
All the time. I'm the #1 reporter on the paper.
Who have you talked to? And I'm not talking about the star of the college play. I'm talking who have you sat down and spoken with?
Celebrities? Everyone.
Name them.
Be here all night.
Who have you interviewed? Margaret, tell me who you...
Aren't you going to let me back in?
Who?
I'll tell you if you let me in. Please. Just take one step back inside and I'll tell you.
Margaret re-enters the room.
Abrasion Basquiat.
Never heard of him.
You've never heard of Abrasion Basquiat?
No.
He's the lead singer for Skin.
Sting?
Skin.
Never heard of them.
Well, let me tell you, they're huge in the Berkshires.
Really? I'll tell Sting the next time I see him. Look, I would really love to give an exclusive interview to a college newspaper reporter, but I have a private jet waiting for me at LaGuardia that arrives in LA at 11. And then I have to go to a party at David Geffen's house, so excuse me for not seeing you to the door. Goodbye, Margaret. I hope you'll forgive me for not seeing you to the door.
Cheyenne exits. Margaret scrambles through her backpack and pulls out a copy of Esquire. Cheyenne returns, checking his messages on a cell phone.
Scene in Ambitron, where Cheyenne Ford's character witnesses a murder, is the place where fact and fiction collide, and it's given rise to respeculate what happened in the San Rafael Hills on October 10th, 1993, when his father, the actor Asher Ford, was found dead of a heart attack.
All right, that's it. Get out.
Television enabled Asher Ford's fame to rise at the rate of his appetite for cocaine and bourbon. And gradually, the polished image he portrayed became the persona of a father in absentia.
I want you out of here now.
An immovable presence in the home he shared with his actress wife, Felicia Mohair, and their young son, Cheyenne.
You want me to call security? Because I will.
He slid into obscurity at the same time his wife's agent, Nathan Rose, began championing the career of Cheyenne, who would become for Rose, much like Felicia Mohair, his ingenue, and some would say his obsession.
I'm giving you the chance to leave without bodily harm.
Was it a mercy killing? Was Asher Ford's death the brilliant ending orchestrated by the hands of the woman he loved?
What was your deepest grieving?
Is this true?
What was your deepest grieving?
You can trust me.
Answer my question.
Is this really what happened?
Cheyenne begins sorting through the contents of Margaret's bag.
Why won't you answer my question?
Get away from my things.
What? You don't like this? This is making you uncomfortable? You can trust me, because even though I just met you 2 minutes ago, I'm your friend, and I know that you need a friend because no one understands you better than me. So come on, tell me your deepest grieving. Come on. Tell me your deepest grieving. I'm your best friend. What is it? Come on. You gonna tell me? What is it, Margaret?
When my father died. Now get away from my things!
Who are you?
How many times do I have to tell you I'm the #1 reporter on the newspaper?
You're a liar. You haven't interviewed anyone, have you? What else are you lying about? The rock star? You lying about him? Open your bag. Lift up your sweater.
He's real. He happened.
So it's all bullshit. Everything's a lie.
No. I interviewed Abrasion Basquiat.
That means nothing to me.
Listen to me. You have to give me a chance.
Then prove it. Show me the article. Is it in your bag?
I can't. I mean, it's not here.
And tell me what you wrote.
This is my last. Please. Don't.
Tell me every line of it, like you know every line of my life.
This is my last chance or else I'm fired. Don't you see?
No, I don't see.
I'm the last one. There is no one else left to send. I have to get this story. I promised her I would get the story.
What story?
Yours.
Cheyenne tosses Margaret's bag in the general direction of the entrance.
Get out. I said get out.
I don't have it. I don't have it because Courtney ripped it up and threw it in my face and said, I don't need a writer, Margaret. I need a reporter. And I said, but there were all these things I saw. He's not a rock star. He's alone. He has no one left. He cried in front of me. But I asked for who, what, when, where, and why, not a short story, Margaret. They don't do this at the Boston Globe. That's bullshit, Courtney. We're talking about a person's life. And we're screaming back and forth in her office. Do what I say, Margaret. No, Courtney, he deserves dignity. He deserves the best words I can write. Margaret, decide who you are, a reporter or a writer.
They're all the same.
Oh, there's a huge difference.
How?
The writer sees the film star's glasses, the flowers in the vase. The reporter sees Courtney.
And which one are you?
I haven't decided yet. Please. This is my last chance, or else I'm fired. She said I needed to get the story, not to come back without the story.
You have no idea what you're doing, do you? Or who you even are. Why have you come all this way? To save your job? What do you want from me? Listen to me, because I don't want to have to tell you again. I owe you nothing.
Cheyenne gathers items around the room. Margaret does not move.
Abrasion Basquiat looks like Jesus suffering. Courtney wanted me to write about him, uncover his weaknesses, find out his real identity. So I saw him about a month ago at the Flywheel in East Hampton. He sang all night like he was the only one in the room. And at the end, he gave up singing and began speaking the words, all his words. And the band had stopped playing and nobody clapped at the end. He just stood there. He walked off the stage and I caught up to him and I followed him home. He lives in one room on Holyoke Street with a small bed in the corner, and just in front of it, there's this sleeping bag, this orange caterpillar. So he asked me, what are you looking at? And I said, you have a sleeping bag. Who sleeps when your bed is right there? And that's when he unzipped his sleeping bag and asked if I wanted to test it out. So I did, and it was like a womb. I had to embrace my own body just to fit. And that's when he told me that he only gets to be Abrasion for 3 hours a week. The rest of the time, he's really Elliot Botts, and Elliot Botts makes animal figurines in the glass factory. And he signs them on the bottom with his initials, which looks like a butterfly. He told me he invented himself all over because no one ever leaves a rock star. People only leave Elliot Botts. His father from cancer when he was 11. A twin brother from leukemia 2 years later. and a mother when he was 18 who told him she was tired of living because people kept dying on her. Didn't she notice that I was still there, he asked me. He talked about the way the gas smelled in the kitchen that day after school. What it was like to make food just for him now, and the night he drew a picture of the person he wanted to turn into. And now Elliot Botts is the only member of his family still alive. And every once in a while, he goes into that sleeping bag because it provides him with the illusion of love. This, God. I left when the sun came up, and I finished the article and put a copy of it in his mailbox. He called me the next night, and I went over to the club, and when he saw me, he moved out of the way and held me in his arms. I kept waiting for him to say something, but he didn't. He didn't let go until he heard, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Skin." And there it was, the article on the table. He had underlined the first sentence and the last. I'm sorry to have bothered you.
Margaret lifts up her bag and begins to exit.
What was the first?
The silver zipper of the tubular cocoon was caught on a lint ball down around the rock star's ankles.
And the last?
With the morning sun held in the glass figurines and his life story told, the rock star climbed into his sleeping bag and said goodbye. Because sometimes gods have to disappear on us.
Margaret is about to exit, but Cheyenne sits, as does Margaret. For the first time, he takes off his sunglasses. Lights. Lights up on Nathan, sitting on a bar stool, drinking and speaking to the audience.
The fundamental backstory of fame is to destroy it. And that's what they're trying to do. They are attempting our ability, our wish, our desire to tell stories in the dark. See, the root of happiness begins and ends with what it does to our souls. In ashrams, in churches, on the backs of matchbook covers, in ourselves. We look everywhere, and all it does is less than what the movies do. There is not a church in the land that does not tell you who you are and what you're not and how you're supposed to live. And we present ourselves as nothing more than a conduit to show you what your life can be. We know your soul, but we do not claim it. If you're happy, we make your life happier. If you aren't, we make your life tolerable. We don't run on salvation. We run on fantasy because that's what the soul needs. And that's what the religions and the preachers and the magazines with their lies never seem to understand. We know what it is to be human, to need possibility. And let me tell you, what's your name? Well, let me tell you, Ken. The best thing about the movies is that there are no prayers, and you never have to be alone. I never wanted to be alone, Ken.
Nathan pushes his empty glass forward as the lights fade out. Lights up on Margaret speaking to the audience.
Film star tells all. by Margaret Bloom. From the 39th floor of this hotel, it's difficult to see life as it truly is, because here in all of this decorated splendor, life leans so far to this side of beauty that it becomes a fairy tale. And if it were not for the revelations of a man's life, it'd be easy to escape into its walls and taste the candy cane house. But as it is, flowers abound like telltale signs, and two chairs face each other in a room.
Lights out on Margaret. Lights up on Cheyenne and Margaret.
Where we lived, in all the homes on the streets in the neighborhoods, there were large picture windows, and I saw lives going on inside. I saw everything that happens to a family. The going fun from one room to the next, the occasional laugh and the eventual turning off of lights. And I would look inside to see who was there and guess what the father was saying to the mother or the mother to the son. No one, no matter how close I came, ever saw me. I would hide in the bushes and pretend that I was a part of their family. How much do you want to know, Margaret? He used to take me for drives on Mulholland Drive early in the morning in his MG, then look down from the mountains to the city. Sometimes I wished the roads would never end or the sun ever go down. And I would look over at him driving, the captain of my entire existence, and I closed my eyes against the wind in my face and prayed that we could just stay in the car forever. With the world going by. Do you want me to tell you that he was really just made of porcelain? You see, they destroy you. And the way they do it is by not listening anymore. They lift you up as the new thing, but eventually the new thing gets old and someone else becomes the new thing, and on and on. Is it him? What about him? Is he next? That's what happened to him. There was always someone else taking his place.
Margaret points to the table, to the flowers.
The article says they go with you wherever you go. The flowers.
I go to islands on private jets and to faraway places, and they come with me. Safe smells, the ones I imagined from the houses in the neighborhoods. After he died, I would play the music my mother listened to me as a child. Torch songs. Tired old women who've seen too much. I stayed with her for a long time, but when I began to imagine what the truth was, I realized that all of the flowers and the music was just something to breathe and listen to. That if you reinvent something, it only lasts for so long. And that's when I found out that the flowers and the music were just hiding the fact that I hated her for what she'd done.
So after you and your mother...
I don't want to talk about my mother anymore. If you think you can...
Did you ever talk about your father's death? The way he died?
I don't...
When was the last time you talked with her? When was the last time you
don't know. Years?
Have you attempted to, I don't know, a text? A letter?
Would you? I mean, if you knew the truth of what happened, if you knew your mother, whether it was for love or for mercy... Look, I pretended for a while. I filled every room with flowers. I wanted every room in the house to look just like the ones I was seeing in our neighborhood. And I would play the music my mother listened to as a child. Torch songs. anything to make her feel we were still a family. But I couldn't erase it. The rage. The flowers and the music were all a way to remove
Remove what?
the fact that there was a ghost. Look, I've said too much. I have to get ready for a plane. Please, I think it's time you left.
But the article says that. Wait a minute. I've got it here someplace.
Margaret is shuffling through her bag.
According to the article,
No, you should just be happy about what you got. You talked to the biggest movie star on the planet, and you got him to talk about his mother, and everyone's happy. And then you go back to your little college and write your little story the way you do. No one's mad at you because you've done a remarkable job. Really, isn't that enough?
Margaret pulls pages of the magazine article together.
wait,
Margaret, please.
I got it. His life is world tour of partitions and hotel rooms and remote islands and where the world can never find him. It's a life of glamour or privilege, but not of intimacy. It is the hiding of a beautiful soul. Perhaps no one knows about Cheyenne Ford's life, and in the end, what eventually happened on the night of October 10th, 1993, because Nathan Rose has kept us so brilliantly away from it.
And you want to know, just like everybody else does, the story of the year, the Hollywood mystery finally solved. Are you really that naive to think that of all the people who have come through that door, that this is really what you want?
I don't know what I want. But so far, I have a boy looking into windows and hiding on the roof and putting flowers in a vase all over the world. And here we are 10 years later, and there's still flowers and a boy hiding. And you haven't been able to throw me out yet. So there must be a reason.
You tricked me.
I didn't trick you.
And what if this were happening to you?
But it's not happening to me.
Answer my question. What if someone wanted to know how your father died? How did your father die?
Are you running from it?
How did your father die, Margaret?
I'll ask you again.
Do you ever talk about it?
We're not talking about that right now.
You don't talk about it.
No,
Why not?
because it's over.
But it's all still there, isn't it? Just because it's over doesn't mean that everything is okay. Admit to me that it upsets you to know that there are things left unsaid. Do you know everything? Do you know everything that happened? You don't, right? Because it was all buried. Isn't that what it feels like? Like it was all just placed in the ground? But isn't there a part of you? Isn't there just a small part of you that doesn't want it buried in the ground? You're hiding because you've been told to hide and you don't want to hide anymore. And you want to end the speculation.
But I'm not hiding. You're hiding.
Put the article away.
But there's something I read that...
Put the article away. You don't need it.
But there's a quote from an earlier interview in which you are quoted as saying that your mother has tried to reach out to you to tell you what happened. I just have a few more questions. Why hasn't she publicly spoken about it? Why were there no charges pressed against her? Where is she now? What do you think she's trying to tell you?
Cheyenne rips the article from Margaret's hand and rips it into pieces. He tosses the shards into the air.
Don't you understand? I know what she did.
Margaret sits, she waits, lights out. Lights up on Nathan at the bar.
She can. There is dignity in being an agent. I hold the door, pamper and adore, and make someone's life a moving dream. when I met Felicia Moher on the set of a third-rate movie in Reno. She was a 5-line bit player with no representation. But I saw the radiance of possibility, and when I drove her out of there, it was like transporting a Rembrandt across the desert. Within weeks, she had a small part in the Last Picture Show. Now, it was the intent of Asher Ford to make for himself a credible life, which was difficult for Asher Ford, at least in my eyes, because Asher Ford was not a credible human being. But in the dust of that Texas town, Felicia Moher met Asher Ford and fell in love. Lucifer was smiling to me, to Felicia, to everyone, revealing the most glorious white teeth I have ever seen on a human being, either holy or unholy. The marriage took place a week after Bogdanovich left, and their son Cheyenne was born a year later.
Lights out on Nathan. Lights up on Cheyenne and Margaret.
It's amazing how small you can make yourself when you want to disappear. And after I would get home from the neighborhoods, I would sit on the balcony of where we lived and become as small as I could. I would curl into a little ball and take all of the houses in. Every last person in every house as far as I could see, and I would vow to protect them. All the people I had just seen, I wanted to save them. I felt obligated to select some random family and serve as some kind of protector. Once there was a little girl I saw. She was on her bike one night, way past sundown. And when I asked her where she lived, all she did was point to the house in front of her. There was screaming coming from inside. A man and a woman. I knocked on the door, but no one answered. I said that she needed to find a safe place. So I took her bike and we walked to where I lived and we went to the roof. That's when she told me about the monsters that lived with her. They had angry mouths, she said. They couldn't have been more than 7 or 8. But it had gotten so bad that she couldn't differentiate that the monsters were really I couldn't bring her back there. But I had to tell my mother that this little girl was having to live like this, never knowing her place or whether or not she was needed. Always hearing monsters. I mean, the intention was that I was going to save people, protect them, rescue them. So I told my mother. There was nothing. Just a face with nothing there. And within an hour, there were police at our door, and I never saw the little girl again. I didn't save her. I couldn't save my father. I couldn't save my mother. No one. The superhero did not save the world. And to believe at one time that I thought I really could.
For what seems to be the first time, Margaret looks directly into Cheyenne's eyes, and she waits for him to look back. He does not. Margaret begins cleaning the ripped shards of the magazine article from the floor.
My father drowned in the Atlantic Ocean. The Baltimore Canyon, 60 miles off Delaware. You see, the rule was to pull the gaff when the fish surfaced, and Zach gets this tug, and my father begins wrapping the gaff around his hand, and the marlin surfaces, immediately goes back down again. 850 pounds of energy, and my father goes down with it. 100 feet in 3 seconds. I saw Zach again when I was 18, 2 years ago. He sat down on a blue chair and told my mother and me that you're only supposed to wrap the gaff around once. He said he still lives with the fact that he didn't tell my father. That diving into the ocean wasn't to save him, but merely an act of kindness. I still remember how my father used to hold my face in his big hands, pull me in, and we'd stare at each other. I think he did that just in case, so that I would never forget that photograph. I mean, it was all done better without any words. So now when I go to Paradise Pond at campus late at night, just sitting there throwing stones, wondering about what the hell I'm doing with my life, it's really easy to tell him, I don't know who I am. Help me understand all of it. And you know what he says? His voice is right next to me. Just keep throwing stones, Margaret. The answers will come. Every night. With each stone I throw, my mother used to ask me if I still talk to my father in the water. When I told her that I did, she went nearly ballistic. Don't talk with the water, Margaret. How can you choose him over me, Margaret? I'm alive. He's a dead man. He's been dead since you were 11 years old. I'm here. I'm here for you. Then she tells me that I worship dead memories. And that's when I told her that my dead father serves more purpose than her loser husband, Hugh. Who everyone knows will never finish his dissertation, largely for the reason that loser Hugh will never be as big as his dreams. Besides that, he fucking can't write. Then I hung up and went out and got myself a tattoo directly on my lower back.
Tattoo. You don't strike me as the type.
I'm not. But one day my skin spoke to me. It said, your mother is driving you insane. Paint me now. So I did. I have a theory. And the theory is that anything truly great done in this world, I'm talking brilliant and revolutionary, has been done by the people who've had the courage to tell their parents to fuck off. I showed it to her last Christmas. She nearly fainted under the mistletoe. Meanwhile, my grandmother's got a cigarette in one hand. She's smacking my mother's face with her other, and she's calling me a slut. And I'm yelling, that's right, I'm a hoe, Grammy. It's about time you realize the truth about your granddaughter. Now you go ahead and have another dry martini before breakfast. Whew. And then my grandmother throws her drink at me. And she accidentally hits my mother in the face with the glass on the follow-through, which began a verbal brawl that lasted all the way through Christmas brunch. Then we all made up and went sledding in a horse-drawn carriage. You want to see it? Here goes. Get over there. Not that close. There.
Margaret turns and takes her pants down slightly.
I can't read it.
Are you blind? Come closer. Not that close. Can you read it now?
Save National Public Radio. You're a walking pledge drive.
My mother's a Republican. She wants to repeal federal funding for NPR, and this is my way of telling her, fuck you, we're not going away.
Who, you or NPR?
It's a badge of honor.
You could get it removed. I know someone in LA.
I don't want it removed.
What if you change your mind? You don't want to be 60 years old and...
This is a revolution. I won't change my mind.
How do you know that?
Because it's a part of me forever.
What? National Public Radio? Why couldn't you just have chosen something with a little more... a symbol, an icon, a statement, a memory?
And you don't think NPR is symbolic?
The best body art is representative of a person's life.
Oh. And do you know this?
I know this.
Really? And show me a tattoo, boy.
Cheyenne takes off his shirt, revealing an upper torso filled with tattoos. One by one, Margaret points.
This one.
Symbol of strength.
This one.
Symbol of healing.
This one.
Symbol of sorrow.
This one.
A phone rings 4 times.
Aren't you going to get that?
Cheyenne shakes his head. Lights out. Lights up on Nathan at the bar.
And I don't know why I let it happen, Ken. But I saw the weight of that family fold under the weight of his demons. I saw Felicia, for some ungodly reason, still love him. And for this, I am still rightly justified in disbelieving 10 years later. She still loved him 10 years later after he vanished. After the bourbon and the cocaine and the downslat had shot through his skull like a bullet to the head. Even after he died. Even after he died. But I was the one. I was the one. Me. Nathan Rose. You have got to know that we were going to conquer it, that we were on the verge, all of it, to love alone. To love someone only in your mind, without a sign, without a touch of recognition. To hold someone in the grandest light, in the hope that someday, and it never happened. She never turned and then saw and realized. She really gave me her son. Keep this boy in your stead and have him live right by you. Make all the dreams you never got to keep with me. And I, the dutiful servant, obeyed. It's getting late. I have a limo outside. We're headed back to LA tonight on a private jet from LaGuardia with the #1 film in America. I am not alone. Not really either. There's still things, doors to open, doors to close. Just tonight when we land in LA, I'm scurrying up an 80 million green light from a 2-page treatment. I am not alone. I have the movies. And in the movies, we are never truly alone because the movies is the art of telling the truth to an audience who does not wish to be alone to face it themselves. Ken, it was a pleasure. You have yourself a good evening.
Lights out on Nathan. Lights up on Cheyenne and Margaret.
It's the same message every time. The one I've heard for years. She has something she wants to tell me. The first ring is the one filled with hope. The second ring sounds cautious. The third ring is like all the hope is nearly gone. I always like the fourth ring the most.
Why?
Because it's the last one.
What does she want to tell you?
That she's innocent.
Yes, but have you ever...
I don't believe her.
But have you ever picked up the phone?
And what difference would that make?
Then how do you know what happened?
Would that change anything? Would that suddenly explain away the last 10 years of my life? Would that wash away? Would that bring him back? Everything was happening in whispers down the hall. In the last months, the sound of his pleading, my father's breath, why have they forgotten me? The complete surrender of his voice.
Cheyenne.
She covered him up like a blanket. I was not allowed to see him. Like she hid him away from the world.
Cheyenne. I need you to tell me what happened on the night he died.
There's only so many flowers you can leave. So much music. The sadness of her pleading. The surrender of his voice.
Please.
I was not allowed to see him. She hid him away from me.
Take me to the night he died.
You know I can't do that.
Yes, you can.
That's violating the rules. Rule 1.
Just me. Just me. There will be no one else.
I don't believe you. There was the sound of struggle down the hall. Like he was trying to escape. Like a hand was held up to his mouth. I remember my mother calling his name out, Asher, Asher, like it was a prayer. I remember Nathan coming down into my room and taking me out of the house and into the cold. And then police cars and ambulances, people with cameras. I knew all the hiding places in the cameras. The sounds, they never ended until they carried my father out. It was my fault. That's why everything is so messed up. Because I didn't hear him until the end. He was calling out for me. It was too late. I saved nobody.
Nathan enters.
What is going on? Who are you? How did you get in here? Cheyenne, I told you that under no circumstances was anyone allowed to enter this room.
I'm with the Boston Globe.
The Boston Globe was here yesterday. Interviews are over. Cheyenne, I thought I told you that the door was to be locked.
They didn't get the real story, so they sent me.
What real story?
I want to know what flowers he likes. I wanted to know what his deepest grieving was.
You have no business asking my client anything of a personal nature. Haven't you heard the rules? He is accountable to no one, not himself, not his past. I demand you to leave the hotel this instant. I know what you want, little girl, and you're not going to get it.
He's not leaving until she gets her answer.
You have no right to invade the privacy of my client.
That's why you're going to tell her. Because you know what really happened to my father. You know what happened when I was in the other room. Tell her, Nathan. She's just a girl with a question.
Get out of here now.
Tell her whose hands were wrapped around my father's neck. Tell her it was Felicia's. Go ahead.
Get your things.
Tell her what you told me all those years. Tell her it was an accident. No, tell her that she put her hands around his mouth and she kept him there until he stopped breathing. And why? Because she loved him. Explain that to her, Nathan, because I don't understand it. Tell her she loved him. Go ahead, tell her the real story.
Once more.
Until it was over. Tell her, Nathan, because you know. You know.
Get your things, Cheyenne.
Tell her it was because she couldn't bear to see him go on like that. Please, Nathan, come on. Put the knife in him. It's in your power now. Everything is in your power.
I said get your things. He is not responsible for his past. Don't you know that? I can have you brought up on charges if you do not leave this room. I order you to vacate immediately. Follow me.
Cheyenne pulls Nathan away from Margaret and pushes him into a chair.
Get your fucking hands off her. Now you're going to tell the world what you know. She's not going anywhere. Please, Nathan, it's time. She has to pay for her sins.
Cheyenne Ford regrets that he never got to see his father's
What did she do?
best work ahead of him. It was a death in
Tell me.
It was a death in the family.
Tell me what she said.
Nothing. When I saw him there, when I saw him wanting to die, I asked her to leave the room. There he was, in all his wasted life. And when I put my hands over him, he opened his eyes and put his hands on mine. At first, he pushed them away. Then he grabbed them again in his. Do it, he said. Do it now. End all of this. So I did. That is what happened. Death in the family. And no one ever knew. For a man who wishes to die, asphyxiation is a blessing, and in short, nearly painless and undetectable. You need to pardon the unpardonable sin. In the eyes of God, the innocent are forgiven. Every one of us. Now, one more time. Get your things. Our flight is in 1 hour.
Nathan exits. A phone rings. Cheyenne stares ahead, listening. Margaret crosses downstage and speaks to the audience.
And then it was over. I vanished, invisible. No one, really. I drove through the blackened, wet streets of New York City and eventually onto highways that swept past towns fast asleep. The radio was accurate. Snow fell on Northampton. I got the story, Courtney. The one you sent me there to get. The one you said the world needs to know. And so I kindly returned the items you lent me, except for one. which I held in my hand at the edge of Paradise Pond.
Margaret pulls up her sweater to reveal a small tape recorder that has been affixed by masking tape to her stomach. She removes a small tape from it.
In the realm of all that I had seen, in the smallness of flowers in a vase, in the surrender of eyes revealed, in the delicacy of the truth, I asked myself, who am I? Who am I? Waiting. Until the answer arrived so sweetly in my father's voice. I quit. Sincerely, Margaret Bloom.
Holding the small tape in her hand, Margaret begins the very beginning motions of throwing. Lights out.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Carrie, I'm going to invite the esteemed playwright back. And feel free to ask any questions you want over the YouTube channel. There's Richard right there. Rest of the cast is welcome to come as well, I think. A little applause from this side of things. Richard, why don't you tell us a little bit about what kind of the pieces that started you down this route of writing this play?
Yeah, and I just wanted to thank, first of all, thanks to Carrie Christine for allowing this play to be seen again. And thanks certainly to Margaret and to Aidan. They were nothing short of brilliant, I thought. And obviously, Michael, you leave me breathless with your performance, and I thank you very much for that. The play really came out of a story I read in the University of Delaware student newspaper many years ago when I worked at the university in an editorial capacity. There was an 18-year-old student, I think it was a woman, who worked her way into a press conference in New York City for a major Hollywood film. And I thought that was bold of her. And I just put that into the back of my head. And then a couple of years later, I saw one of those Hollywood Access programs where a first stage, top actor was giving an interview in a hotel room with the Central Park behind him, and he had his sunglasses on. And I thought that was rather peculiar. And I started to think about the paralyzed feeling that you have, or one has, by being famous, to be in that fishbowl. And then I started to think about the ramifications of fame, and that led me to this, the writing of this play.
What's the production history on it? Have you had this up before in places?
Yeah, it premiered at the Wilmington Drama League several years ago, and subsequently was performed at the Chapel Street Theater and went to a few festivals, I believe. And then it got picked up by a director I had been working with on plays in New York City, and it entered a Mid-Atlantic Festival or something of that kind, but it won Best Play, and then subsequently he was given a run at this theater in New York. So it has not been done probably for about 7 or 8 years. So it was was great to hear it again, the spoken by really superb actors.
Did you take anything new away from this experience? I know it's a little different doing it on Zoom, but listening to your play in a little different capacity, did anything highlight to you that hadn't highlighted to you before, or?
Yeah, every time I've seen this play performed, and it's probably about 4 productions. It's different. It reads differently every time. And one of the questions I asked Michael, I said, during our one rehearsal was, how do you want to play this? There's no wrong or right way. It's just how the actor feels. And I've seen some actors who play Nathan tumble down into despair in admitting at the end that they did murder Cheyenne's father. And then I've seen a few others just play it straight. Just play it straight like it's ancient history. We got to catch a plane. And I thought that Michael's performance of Nathan tonight was so nuanced because I know that he's a decent guy. I never felt that about Nathan before. And I think what Michael did tonight was show his humanism. And I've had the pleasure to listen to hear and watch the performances, the rat-tat-tat back and forth in the beginning between Margaret and Cheyenne, but I've never heard it done so effectively as tonight. There was a beautiful humanism to these individuals, and I really I felt them come together. As soon as those glasses came off, then I knew that the play could really start. And so it was a beautifully, nuanced performance by Margaret and Aidan as well. So every time is different, but I think this might be the most polished, which is amazing because we've only had one rehearsal.
Yeah, because we got together once. Well, it's a little light on the comments. Well, not the comments, but the questions on the chat. So I encourage people that are watching, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in. We do have some comments, which are bravo from Jennifer Fox. These are smiley face emoticons with hearts in them from Jacob Moore. It's very important to read those. James Cassis, thanks and congrats.
Who?
A lot of thanks. Mr. Cassis. James.
Oh, yeah, him.
You might remember. I had a question from you and I worked on Ethan's People together several years ago now.
Yeah.
And I remember how robust and deep and delicious the monologues were. And in listening to this play, there's also a lot of deeply profound and moving monologues. And I just wondered about where you developed your writing acumen. Did you have training in that anywhere, a school or something? Or did it just come by repetition and trial and error?
No, I had never written a play before in my life until these crazy bunch of kids called the City Theater Company started their own company 20-something years ago, and with a 10-minute play festival. And I decided that I was going to try my hand at writing a play, having never done it. And I submitted a play, and it was done. It was performed I think it was the very first night. And I remember Tom Shade getting up in front of the audience, and he said, I really don't know what's going to happen tonight, tomorrow, or for the rest of this theater company. I don't know how long we're going to last, but we're going to do it. And here we are, many, many years later, and so many successful productions. But I have to credit Cooper and Shade and Michael for having the guts, the courage to start this theater company, because it gave people like me a chance. And if it's given a couple of playwrights a chance, like me and Robson and others, George Teets and and people like that. Think of how many actors it's given a chance to, how many directors, how many backstage people. So my cap is off to them, because without them, I don't think I would have written a play, and that led to other plays. Where I get it from, I don't know. I write and write and write, and I rewrite those monologues in the plays, sometimes 8, 10 times more, until I get it right. And but I can only do so much, and have to give it off to a good director and then some good actors. And that's what you saw tonight.
We had a question out there to the actors, in fact, about what do they feel about performing on Zoom? How different is that for them as an experience? And I'd like to hear from each one of you. Let's start with Aiden.
It is going to be very basic, but it is definitely different. But different, dare I say, in a good way, because you have new things and new, what's the word I'm looking for? Abilities that you have to kind of dig into, that you don't normally, or you may not usually have. If you're on stage, you got some space between yourself and the audience. On Zoom, camera's right up on you. So everything matters, up to facial everything and body language, like all that matters a million times more, just because the camera's right here. So it's definitely a learning experience, enjoyable, because I'm just glad we're able to do things. Definitely different and a learning experience.
Yeah. Have you done more than this one in the Robeson play that we did?
I have not. Over Zoom, it was just Robeson and this one.
I gotcha. How about you, Margaret? Any differences, or how do you feel about performing on Zoom versus in person?
Pretty similarly to Aiden, honestly.
Yeah.
You do, especially when it comes to rehearsing with new people, I feel like there is, I don't want to say there's like some connection that's lost, but it is a little different in that way. But at the same time, there's so many opportunities for like awesome camera work, and I don't know, just doing really cool things with technology. So all in all, I'm really grateful that we have Zoom and other platforms, and I think it's been working pretty well.
Yeah. Michael, how about you?
I spend my life on Zoom.
Yeah.
But as an actor, I like to project, so I, in my room here, it's really like peeling the curtains back. I feel, oh boy. And Nathan, the cool thing, he has these beautiful monologues, and that in this kind of environment, it's really kind of cool to sit here and kind of reflect and be internal and introspective and struggle like I'm just talking to one person, and that's really cool. That a cool experience for me, because you don't necessarily get that on stage. You have an audience there, and you have lights and all the other kind of things going on. So that was really cool for me. I miss the energy that you get from an actor. I don't really know these guys very well. This is my first thing, and it was great to hear them read and to work with them on the piece. But I really, you weren't on stage talking to each other and having the energy go back and forth, and that's a lot. That's a loss for me, and I miss that. However, I do think there's a great opportunity here to do this, right, and have this experience and present some cool work. Otherwise, we would just be in the dark all the time.
Yeah.
I
would
think
say-
it. I think it's interesting too that this is our second time getting to work with Aiden and Margaret, and it's been great both times. And we're so happy to have you, and we're so excited and hopeful that we can work with you in real person life and actually do things together in person sometime soon, hopefully. I think it's funny that for both of you mentioning sort of the camera being immediate, because City Theater, everything we do is very immediate, kind of from day one. We tend to perform in very small spaces with an audience right on top of you. So I think it's kind of interesting that you're getting like a back channel into the City Theater style of acting via a camera, not actual faces in front of you so much. So I think that's really interesting. And I agree with Michael. It's hard sometimes with the energy and getting to do it. And I don't know if it's because you guys got to work together on a play for us a little while ago on Zoom, but you had some amazing chemistry going back and forth tonight when I watched, and it was really neat to see where you were actually using this forum and this camera to actually really engage with each other, see each other, hear each other, not just be reading in your box doing your part. I felt, a few times like you could have been in the same room and sitting next to each other. So that was really cool. So I feel like we're all learning how to sort of do this, and I'm hoping we can apply those skills when we get to do it like we're used to doing it, or like we prefer to do it.
Did either of you feel that comfort level or chemistry, Aiden, Margaret, from working together before?
I can say I definitely did. I mean, just kind of what Michael said. I mean, it helped. I mean, I still don't know Margaret too much, because having only done this one other time, but that one other time was still enough. It was still something. But like Michael said, I mean, not being in person, there is a bit of a loss there, but I'm sure if we did another thing with Michael on Zoom, I mean, I'm sure we would see that play across at that point too. But definitely.
Cool. That question, by the way, was from Carol. So hi, Carol, and thank you for your question. Stu, our friend Stu, says fantastic and a lot of fun. Congrats. Kate says wonderful. Vincent says, enjoyed the play. Thanks, everyone. Fantastic. Hey, Richard, it almost feels like a first in a series. What do you think? Any sequels forthcoming?
Well, I think
Join us
Carrie,
this time next month
I think Carrie
for
Christine,
another
I think Carrie
installment.
Christine and I will have a conversation soon. I'm flattered that someone would even consider it.
Three
But
pairs.
I think you should just go back to David or George has got something in his kit bag. But I'm just so grateful to be included. But we'll see. But thank you.
Carrie Michelle wondered why choose this piece to produce over Zoom? What drew you to it?
Richard asking us if we would do it.
Yeah, see, sometimes the proactive approach works, playwrights.
How it all started. When we realized that, like everyone else, we all thought that this year-plus long situation we're in was going to last a few weeks. And so we sort of just kept pushing back every in-person plan, we had for last season. And then when we realized that wasn't going to happen, we're like, but it'll be fine by September. So we just sort of pushed. And then as we slowly started to realize that was not going to be an option, one of the things that we did do, actually, the first play that City Theater read in this style, in this Zoom format, was a premiere we'd done a few years ago by Dave Robeson. And that was actually supposed to be an in-person performance somewhere else. And then we sort of pivoted it to do in this format, just for something to do to give our actors a chance to be together, to reunite, read this thing we'd already done aloud, which was very different because we'd already done it. So we just sort of had to meet and brush up. We all knew each other. We'd all worked together before over the years. And in that particular play, and then as the pandemic dragged on and we still couldn't open our theaters, we still couldn't offer in-person performance, I did reach out to some of our our favorite playwrights, like Richard, like Dave Robeson, like George Teets, who, if you're watching, we're still waiting for what you're going to give us, to see if they had anything that they would like us to present in this format. And Richard said he would think about it, and he got back to me with this. We're also actually working on an in-person, hopefully, play of Richard's, a full-length play that we had hoped to do last year, called Rehoboth. And so that's still as part of our commitment to developing new work. We're still working on that, and you should be hearing more about that soon. But doing this Two Chairs was great. He took a look through, his archives and said, this might be a good one to do. And he had seen Comfort and Joy, which was another Robeson piece, had asked specifically for Aiden and Margaret and Michael. So good job, guys. And so we were able to do this. So, it's really about that. It's about keeping in communication with each other. We're all still trying to create. We're all still trying to do things. Our younger actors here are in school studying acting, which is amazing. So I'm really grateful. I hope they're grateful that we have this opportunity to work together and do something different at a time when they should be performing all over the place, in school and over the summer, and probably can't right now because of everything. So that's how Richard said, you could do this one. And I said, okay.
I'm flattered that you chose it. Thank you.
Ashton writes, stunning performance. I was glued to the screen and the emotions of the characters every second. Will this be performed live in a theater in the near future? If so, where?
Is that question for me?
I guess so. You would know, I guess, as a playwright.
I'd love to see it. Obviously we've got three great actors here. I'd love to be able to see these three actors in a perfect world on the stage. But I'm currently working. Obviously, we're working on getting the play Rehoboth off the ground post-COVID. I'm working on another new play. So I think my concentration is on those two plays. But I haven't forgotten about Two Chairs, and I never will. It's always been one of my, I always call it my most intimate play, because it literally can be done on a stage with three chairs. Actually a bar stool and two chairs. And it's been done like that. And, but we'll see. We'll cross that bridge if we get to that bridge. So I'd love to see it on stage. Yes. When? We don't know.
Someone enjoyed listening to it. They couldn't keep their eyes on the screen. This was Wendy, but they were listening to it and then sort of enjoyed it as a radio serial back in the 40s, and it lent itself well to that. I think that's kind of fun about Zoom too. You can take your eyes off of it and still listen and follow along. Here's a good question from Maddie TCAM, which is fun. And Richard, you as a playwright might have some input on this. As we come out of COVID, fingers crossed, is it worth writing a play designed for Zoom?
Wow. It's a fascinating question. I'm sure that some smart, clever playwright, she's already got the idea in her head that's going to happen. I haven't. That's a brilliant idea. And if she is in fact a playwright, it's hers. But I'm sure somewhere along the line we're going to see that. We're going to see the individual rectangles and people's faces in them somehow. But I'm not going to be the one to write it. But it's a great idea. Thanks for that question.
Another one from Michelle was a good one for the actors. What was your favorite part of the character that you played in this play? And we could start with you, Michael. I think you touched on that a little bit.
Section of the play, or just part of the character?
I think like characteristic or inner journey or whatever appealed to you or resonated with you with the character.
I think I talked a little about this at our only last rehearsal. Tapping into his loneliness, that being alone. He's not alone. Almost convincing himself that he's not alone. was really powerful for me to tap into that, and the isolation and the lack of recognition in some ways, and it's especially in COVID, during COVID, that really kind of resonated with me. So I think that was something that I kind of tapped into in this reading.
Aiden, how about you? By the way, I love you tap into something here. It's like an early Tom Cruise or a Brandon Routh when you're reading the "Do you know who I am?" sort of speech. Anything resonate with you in terms of playing this character?
I think the main thing for me that I think a lot of people that could resonate with this is having things that you try to not look at or you try to not talk about, no matter whatever it may be. And Cheyenne definitely has some of that. He has this past that, he even brings it up with Margaret, talk about it. Go ahead, since it's so easy, talk about your past, talk about your story, talk about what, and it's not that easy. Especially with something like the death of a parent. So it was definitely fun and interesting, and again, a learning experience to tap into that idea of, like Michael said, loneliness, but also having things that you may not enjoy to talk about, especially in COVID times, not wanting to talk about certain things. So that was definitely one of the many aspects that was fun to try and tackle.
Margaret?
This was a really great character. And I had a lot of fun with this exploration. And I mean, it's evident from the beginning that she clears a lot of unexpected paths. But there's so many that are below the surface, like, oh, of course, it's unexpected that she walks in and just starts doing her thing. It's unexpected that, she shows up right before he's about to take off for a flight, But in terms of how she functions and how she operates, there's a lot that's unexpected there in terms of her, her relationship to thoughts versus emotions as a journalist. And even the nuanced way in which she's sort of an oversharer and a prodder of the people she's interviewing. Even within that, there are a lot of moments of contrast. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you for sharing. There are a lot of kudos and gratitudes in the chat. If you want to stroke your ego, I can send those to you individually. But for now, I'm going to pass it over to Carrie Christine. I think we can maybe close up shop.
Yeah, so really, thank you all again. Thank you to everyone who's watching, everybody who hung out here and listened to our sort of talk back afterward to hear a little bit about the process and some thoughts from our playwright and our performers. You can find us at citytheater.org, city-theater.org to find out what we have coming up. You can follow us on Facebook and see some things we have coming down the road. Hopefully we will revisit this play again at some point in the future, and definitely hoping that we will be working with these wonderful actors again in person or on the Zoom, depending on how things go. But thank you all for being here, and just thank you. And congratulations to everyone for tonight, because it was really well done.
Good night.
Good night. Yeah, bye.